I haven't seen Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie, but the show is pretty good. It's about two people hired to be secret agents. Here they are. They hadn't met before, but they're instructed to pretend to be a married couple to work on missions together. They actually fall in love, but then tension emerges and grows to the point where they literally try to kill each other. Sorry about the spoiler, but promise I haven't given away the entire ending. In the final episode, both Mr. and Mrs. Smith take a truth serum, and they both know they've both done this. This forces them to not only be honest with each other, but also to trust each other. They then talk, share how they feel. Lo and behold, they realize they still love each other. Mr. and Mrs. Smith resonated with me and other viewers because it's a dramatic version of a common story. People very capable, getting along, even being in love, can grow to develop hostility if they fail to communicate effectively. It's a story we've all seen different versions of many times before. We all know how easy it is for relationship problems and even extreme conflict to develop due to misunderstandings. And yet, when we personally feel hostility toward another person or group of people, we don't think to ourselves, what am I misunderstanding about them? We just think about how awful they are. So, if we know how easy it is for hostility to develop due to misunderstandings, why don't we question the hostility that we feel toward other people? How can we get ourselves to question our own interpersonal animosity? Before trying to answer those questions, let's give misperception-driven interpersonal animosity a shorter and hopefully catchier name. How about undue hate? You, yes you, have felt undue hate at times in your life. You might feel it towards someone, maybe many people, or a group of people now. This is true for all of us, including myself. My wife feels some undue hate toward me just about every other day. It's okay. Undue hate can be caused by disagreements that have nothing to do with politics, like for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And these days especially, undue hate is often caused by political disagreements. So there's no quick fix for eliminating undue hate. Knowledge is power. I'm a behavioral economist who studies emotional polarization and the causes of undue hate. And we can all try to understand these causes better, spread awareness of them. In the long run, this might be the best way to fight undue hate. And there are a few concrete actions we can all take now. One cause of undue hate that's gotten a lot of attention is a cause of undue hate toward entire groups of people, which is the human tendency to favor our own social identity groups and to demonize outside groups. I'm actually going to talk about a factor that causes undue hate both between groups, like say political parties, and within groups, like say between brothers in the same family. It's a psychological phenomenon that I think will be very intuitive and familiar when you hear it, but its importance in driving a range of biases and polarization is just starting to be understood. It's called WYSIATI. It stands for what you see is all there is. Yeah, it is kind of a strange acronym, but it actually rolls off the tongue nicely. WYSIATI. So this term was first proposed by psychologist Daniel Kahneman, actually won the Nobel Prize for Economics due to his contributions to behavioral economics. Kahneman proposed this term in his 2011 bestseller, Thinking Fast and Slow. And the term was new then, but the idea, of course, was not. It goes back at least as far as the story of the blind men and the elephant, first written about in ancient Buddhist texts. So in this story, different blind men feel different parts of an elephant, and each think that what they see, so to speak, is all there is. The man touching the elephant's leg thinks it's a tree. The man touching the elephant's tail thinks it's a rope. The man touching the elephant's trunk thinks it's a snake. So we can't help not knowing what we don't know. But we can help thinking we know all there is to know. And yet, none of the blind men said, I'm only touching part of this object, and there might be other parts of it out there that I don't know what they feel like. Because, of course, it's not human nature to think that way. We think what we see is all there is. As a result, we're overconfident what we know. We're therefore overconfident that those who disagree with us are wrong. We're therefore overconfident in their general foolishness, stubbornness, bias, obstinance, even stupidity. We therefore dislike those people more than we should, based on reality. In other words, we feel undue hate toward those people. So you can already see how WYSIATI, through overconfidence, causes undue hate. But I'm now going to talk about 3 more subtle mistakes that WYSIATI also causes, which also contribute to undue hate. First, false polarization. This term refers to the tendency to actually overestimate how polarized political parties are on real issues. Believe it or not, Democrats and Republicans are subject to false polarization. This has been shown in many studies. For example, Democrats underestimate, by a long shot, the percent of Republicans who say properly controlled immigration can be good for America. Therefore, underestimate how much they have in common with Republicans on immigration. And Republicans make a similar mistake, underestimating the percent of Democrats who say they're proud to be American. And WYSIATI is a fundamental cause of false polarization. That's because we're more likely to see extremists from the other side than more moderate, more typical people from the other side. On cable TV, social media, media in general, the people with the strongest opinions are most likely to speak out and get attention. If we think what we see is all there is, we'll think these extremists represent the other side better than they really do. We'll think the other side is more different from us than they are. We'll dislike the other side more than we should, based on reality, and feel undue hate toward the other side. Okay. So sometimes we overestimate disagreement. Sometimes we know exactly how much we disagree, right? For example, you and a neighbor have a fight over lawn care. They want you to mow, water more often. You like to let it go more natural. No false, overestimated polarization, just polarization. You can see how this would cause hostility and hate, but why undue hate? So naive realism, another psychology term, helps explain this. Naive realism is our naive tendency to think we see the world more realistically and objectively than we really do. And WYSIATI, again, what you see is all there is, directly causes us to be naive realists. And one implication of naive realism is we think our personal tastes are objective truths. How often it's best to mow the grass might be more a matter of taste than pure truth. But if we think we're disagreeing about truths, and we're actually disagreeing about tastes, we'll falsely think the other side is just wrong when they're actually just different. We'll therefore falsely think they're more foolish, biased, stubborn, dumb than they really are, dislike them more than we should, feel undue hate. So sometimes we overestimate disagreement, false polarization. Sometimes we confuse taste with truths, naive realism. Both make us overestimate the foolishness of those we disagree with. But sometimes when we disagree, we think the other side is worse than foolish. We think they're dishonest, hiding something, selfish, self-serving, pursuing some bad motive. Why is that? So, surprisingly in this case, undue hate is caused by overestimating how much the other side agrees with us, called the false consensus effect. See why? Back to the blind man and the elephant. Suppose the man touching the elephant's leg thinks it's a tree subject to false consensus. That means he thinks everyone knows it's a tree. So, when he hears another man say it's a rope, he thinks that man is lying because he knows it's a tree. Why would he lie? Well, maybe he's a jerk who likes messing with people. Or maybe he has some self-interested reason to convince other people that it's a rope, to falsely convince them. Of course, he's not lying. He just thinks it's a rope. He's just wrong. And if you think he's lying, you misjudged him. So overestimating how much we agree with other people makes us falsely think that when they say they disagree, they're lying or being disingenuous, to put it more mildly. Either way, we think they're worse people than they really are, dislike them more than we should, feel undue hate. All right. So how do we undo undue hate? Sorry, no quick fix. WYSIATI and the biases it causes, say them with me now, just kidding. Overconfidence, false polarization, naive realism, false consensus, part of our human nature today. But just as we make progress on other less than ideal aspects of our nature, like say, learning to not throw temper tantrums when we don't get our way, We can make progress on WYSIATI through education and self-discipline. We can learn to question our own beliefs, especially when they're beliefs we wish to be true. We can learn to remember we're usually not seeing the whole elephant. We don't even know how much more of it is out there. That there are unknown unknowns, and there are more of those in situations that are more complex. We can embrace intellectual humility as a default mindset and be skeptical of those who claim to be certain in situations where certainty is likely impossible, while updating our own beliefs toward confidence when valid evidence supports us. Just because we have intellectual humility doesn't make us intellectual nihilists. We can also remember that what other people see is all there is to them. Therefore, instead of avoiding or being hostile toward those we disagree with, let's be good ambassadors for our side. Show them we're better than they think. Even engage in what I call media trades, where we read a piece of news or opinion from their side that they suggest in exchange for them reading a piece we suggest. I'm going to close with a thought experiment, returning to the possibility of a truth serum. Suppose you could take any two people, disagree about something, dislike each other, maybe even hate each other. Put them in a room together. Have them take a truth serum. Have them both know that they've done this. So they have to be honest with each other, and they have to trust each other. So they grow to understand each other better. Can't say for sure that the hate would melt away. But I suspect this would be the case, and I bet most of you suspect this too. And the social science indeed says this is what would probably happen. The truth is that our hate is often, maybe even usually or almost always, based on falsehoods. What you see is not all there is. Thank you.